Emma Martinez walked through the glass doors of Sterling and Associates Marketing Agency on a crisp Monday morning in September. Her new black heels clicked against the polished marble floor as she carried her small leather bag and a cup of coffee she had grabbed from the street vendor outside. Today was her first day as a personal assistant to Marcus Sterling, the company's founder and CEO. The reception area buzzed with activity. Well-dressed employees hurried past carrying folders and laptops, their conversations filled with marketing terms Emma was still learning. She approached the front desk where a blonde woman in her 30s smiled warmly at her. "You must be Emma," the receptionist said. "I'm Sarah. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. Take the elevator to the 15th floor. His office is at the end of the hall." Emma thanked her and pressed the elevator button. As the doors closed, she took a deep breath and checked her reflection in the polished metal. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her navy blue dress was professional but not flashy. She wanted to make a good impression. The elevator opened to reveal a long hallway lined with offices. Through the glass walls, she could see people working at their computers, some on phone calls, others in small meetings. The energy was intense but exciting. At the end of the hall stood a pair of wooden double doors with Marcus Sterling, CO, written in gold letters. Emma knocked gently and heard a deep voice call out, "Come in." She pushed open the door and stepped into a spacious corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Marcus Sterling sat behind a large mahogany desk, his attention focused on his computer screen. He was exactly what Emma had expected from the company photos she had seen online. Tall, probably in his early 30s, with short brown hair, and wearing an expensive-looking gray suit. "Mr. Sterling?" Emma said softly. He looked up briefly, his blue eyes scanning her face for just a moment before returning to his screen. "You're the new assistant. Good. There's a stack of contracts on that table that need to be organized by date. My calendar is completely messed up, so you'll need to call everyone and reschedule the meetings for this week. The coffee machine in my office is broken, so I'll need you to get my usual from the cafe downstairs every morning at 8:30. Emma waited for him to tell her what his usual order was, but Marcus had already turned his attention back to his computer. She cleared her throat gently. "What's your usual order, sir?" "Large black coffee, no sugar," he said without looking up. "And I need the Henderson report copied and bound for the board meeting tomorrow. The original is somewhere on my desk." Emma looked at the cluttered desk covered with papers, folders, and several coffee cups from different days. She nodded, even though he wasn't looking at her. "Of course. Is there anything else you need right away?" "Just handle whatever comes up," Marcus said, waving his hand dismissively. "My last assistant left everything in a mess. I'm sure you'll figure it out." Emma spent her first week learning the chaos that was Marcus Sterling's professional life. His schedule was a disaster of double-booked meetings and forgotten appointments. His office looked like a tornado had hit it, with important documents mixed in with old takeout menus and business cards from people he couldn't remember meeting. She worked late every evening, staying until 7 or 8 o'clock to organize files, return phone calls, and try to create some system out of the madness. Marcus rarely acknowledged her efforts. He would arrive each morning, take the coffee she had waiting for him, and immediately disappear into meetings or phone calls. During her second week, Emma discovered that Marcus had missed 3 important client dinners because no one had confirmed the reservations. She quietly called each client, apologized profusely, and rescheduled the meetings. She also found unpaid invoices stuffed in random drawers and a stack of birthday cards for his mother that he had bought, but never sent. "Mr. Sterling," Emma said one afternoon, standing in his office doorway with a folder in her hands. "I found these cards for your mother. Her birthday was last month according to your calendar." Marcus looked up from his phone call, covered the receiver with his hand, and stared at the cards for a moment. "Just send them all with flowers or something," he said quickly before returning to his conversation. Emma sent a beautiful bouquet with a heartfelt note she wrote herself, signing it "Love, Marcus." She handled it like she handled everything else, quietly and efficiently, without expecting recognition. By her third week, Emma had transformed Marcus's office from chaos into order. She created a filing system, organized his schedule, and set up reminders for important dates. She learned his preferences without him having to tell her. He liked his lunch meetings at quiet restaurants. He preferred morning appointments over afternoon ones. And he always ordered the same salad from the deli across the street when he worked late. Marcus barely seemed to notice the changes. He moved through his days accepting Emma's efficiency as if it had always existed. When clients complimented him on how well-organized everything had become, he simply nodded and changed the subject. Emma found herself working harder to gain even the smallest acknowledgement. She arrived earlier, stayed later, and anticipated his needs before he even knew he had them. She researched his clients before meetings, prepared detailed briefings, and made sure his favorite pens were always in his desk drawer. One Thursday afternoon, Emma was organizing files in the small office adjacent to Marcus's when she overheard him on a phone call with his business partner, David Chun. "The new assistant is working out fine," Marcus said. "She keeps things running smoothly. I barely have to think about the administrative stuff anymore." Emma felt a small surge of satisfaction. Finally, some recognition, even if it wasn't said directly to her. "What's she like?" David asked. Emma could hear his voice through Marcus's speakerphone. "I don't know," Marcus replied. "Professional, I guess. She gets things done." Emma's satisfaction faded quickly. After 3 weeks of working closely together, Marcus knew nothing about her beyond her ability to organize his life. She realized that to him. She wasn't really a person, she was just a function, like his computer or his coffee machine. The following Monday, Emma decided to try a different approach. When she brought Marcus his morning coffee, instead of simply placing it on his desk and leaving, she lingered for a moment. "Mr. Sterling, I wanted to let you know that the Morrison account presentation is ready for your review. I also confirmed your lunch with the Peterson Group, and they're excited to discuss the new campaign ideas." Marcus looked up from his computer, actually making eye contact with her for more than 2 seconds. "Good. Anything else?" "The flowers arrived for your mother. She called to thank you. She said the note was beautiful and that she's proud of how thoughtful you've become." For a moment, Marcus looked confused. Then, Emma saw recognition dawn in his eyes as he remembered asking her to send something. "Right. The flowers. Good." Emma waited, hoping he might ask about the note she had written or show some interest in his mother's reaction. Instead, Marcus turned back to his computer screen. "That's all for now," he said. Emma returned to her desk feeling invisible again. She wondered if this was what the job would always be like, being essential but unseen, important but unacknowledged. That afternoon, while Emma was updating Marcus's calendar, a tall man with dark hair and a friendly smile approached her desk. He was wearing a navy blue suit and carrying a leather briefcase. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm looking for Marcus Sterling's office." "I'm James Rodriguez from Rodriguez Marketing Solutions." Emma looked up from her computer and smiled. "You must be here for the 4 o'clock meeting. I'm Emma Martinez, Mr. Sterling's assistant." James smiled back, and Emma noticed he had warm brown eyes and an easy, genuine expression that was completely different from Marcus's intense, distracted demeanor. "It's nice to meet you, Emma," James said. "I have to say, this is the most organized I've ever seen Sterling's operation. Are you the reason everything seems to be running so smoothly?" Emma felt herself blush slightly. It had been weeks since anyone had really looked at her or acknowledged her work directly. "I just try to keep things organized." "Well, you're doing an amazing job," James said. "I've been trying to get a meeting with Marcus for months, and suddenly, everything was scheduled perfectly. Your predecessor never returned my calls." Before Emma could respond, Marcus's office door opened, and he stepped out. "Rodriguez," he said, extending his hand. "Ready for our meeting?" "Absolutely," James replied, shaking Marcus's hand. "I was just telling your assistant how impressed I am with the organization around here." Marcus glanced at Emma briefly, then back at James. "Right, let's get started." As the two men disappeared into Marcus's office, Emma found herself thinking about the difference between them. James had taken the time to learn her name, to acknowledge her work, and to actually see her as a person. Marcus had worked with her for nearly a month and still sometimes seemed surprised when she spoke. The meeting lasted an hour. When it ended, Emma could hear both men laughing as they walked toward the door. James stopped at her desk on his way out. "Emma, it was really nice meeting you," he said. "I hope we'll have a chance to work together on this project." "I hope so too," Emma replied, meaning it. After James left, Marcus returned to his office without saying anything about the meeting. Emma finished updating his calendar and prepared to leave for the day. As she gathered her things, she found herself thinking about James's warm smile and the way he had actually listened when she spoke. That evening, Emma sat in her small apartment eating takeout Chinese food and reflecting on her first month at Sterling and Associates. The job itself was exactly what she had hoped for: challenging, well-paying, and offering opportunities to learn about the marketing industry. But she hadn't expected to feel so invisible. Emma had always been good at reading people and anticipating their needs. In college, her professors had praised her attention to detail and her ability to manage multiple projects. Her previous job at a small law firm had ended when the company downsized, but her boss had written her a glowing recommendation letter. She had been excited about working for Marcus Sterling. His company had an excellent reputation, and she had read several articles about his innovative marketing campaigns. In interviews, industry magazines described him as brilliant, driven, and creative. They never mentioned that he seemed incapable of seeing the people who made his success possible. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message from her best F 3 weeks after the Rodriguez marketing meeting. Emma's phone rang while she was organizing Marcus's expense reports. She glanced at the caller ID and saw an unfamiliar number. Sterling and Associates, Marcus Sterling's office. "This is Emma," she answered professionally. "Emma, I was hoping you'd answer," came a warm, familiar voice. "This is James Rodriguez. We met a few weeks ago." Emma felt a small flutter of surprise and pleasure. "Of course, Mr. Rodriguez. How can I help you?" "Please, call me James. I was actually calling to speak with you, not Marcus. I have a business proposition that I think might interest you." Emma looked toward Marcus's closed office door, where she could hear him on another phone call. "I'm sorry, but I think there might be some confusion. I'm Mr. Sterling's assistant. Any business discussions would need to go through him." "Actually, this is about you," James said. "I've been thinking about our conversation, and I'm impressed by how you've transformed Marcus's operation. My company is expanding, and I'm looking for someone with your organizational skills and attention to detail. Would you be interested in discussing a position with Rodriguez Marketing Solutions?" Emma's breath caught. A job offer? She had been at Sterling and Associates for less than 2 months. That's very flattering, but I'm quite happy here." "I'm sure you are," James said. "But I'd love to take you to lunch and tell you about what we're building. No pressure, just a conversation between professionals. What do you say?" Emma found herself saying yes before she had fully thought it through. They arranged to meet at a small Italian restaurant the following Friday at noon. After hanging up, Emma sat staring at her phone, wondering what she had just agreed to. That afternoon, Marcus emerged from his office looking frustrated. "Emma, I need you to cancel my 2 o'clock and reschedule the Patterson meeting for next week. Also, call Rodriguez Marketing and tell them we need to move faster on the Hartwell project. They're moving too slowly." "Of course," Emma said, making notes. "Should I schedule a follow-up meeting with Mr. Rodriguez?" "If necessary," Marcus said, already walking back toward his office. "Just handle it." As Emma dialed James's number to discuss the Hartwell project, she felt a strange mix of guilt and excitement. She was having lunch with someone who wanted to hire her away from Marcus, but Marcus barely seemed to notice she existed anyway. "Rodriguez Marketing, this is James," came the familiar voice. "James, it's Emma Martinez from Sterling and Associates. Mr. Sterling wanted me to follow up about the Hartwell project timeline." "Of course," James said, his tone shifting to professional. "Tell Marcus we'll have the preliminary designs ready by Wednesday. But, Emma, I'm really looking forward to our lunch on Friday." "Yes, about that." Emma lowered her voice. "I should mention that I haven't told Mr. Sterling about our meeting." "There's nothing to tell yet," James said kindly. "We're just having lunch. 2 professionals getting to know each other better." After ending the call, Emma updated Marcus on the Hartwell timeline. He nodded absently and returned to his computer without thanking her or asking any follow-up questions. Friday arrived quickly. Emma told Marcus she was taking her lunch break and would be back by 2 o'clock. He grunted acknowledgement without looking up from his paperwork. The Italian restaurant James had chosen was cozy and quiet, with red checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh bread in the air. Emma arrived first and was seated at a corner table. When James walked in 5 minutes later, He looked around until he spotted her and broke into a genuine smile. "Emma, you look lovely," he said, settling into the chair across from her. "Thank you for agreeing to this." Emma smoothed her blue dress nervously. "Thank you for inviting me. Although I have to admit, I'm not sure why you're interested in hiring someone with so little experience." "Because experience isn't everything," James said, opening his menu. "I've been watching how you work, and I'm impressed. In just 2 months, you've completely transformed Marcus's operation. His office actually functions now. His clients are happy because their calls get returned and their meetings happen on time. That takes intelligence, dedication, and natural organizational talent." The waitress came to take their orders. Emma chose a Caesar salad, while James ordered chicken parmesan. When they were alone again, James leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about yourself, Emma. What made you want to work in marketing?" It was the first time anyone at Sterling and Associates had asked her about herself. Emma found herself opening up about her college studies, her interest in business psychology, and her previous job at the law firm. "I've always been fascinated by how companies build relationships with their customers," she explained. "Marketing isn't just about selling products. It's about understanding what people need and finding creative ways to connect with them." James nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. Too many people think marketing is just advertising, but it's really about communication and trust. That's what my company focuses on, building authentic connections between brands and consumers." As their food arrived, James told Emma about Rodriguez Marketing Solutions. He had started the company 3 years ago with 2 employees. Now they had 15 people and were growing rapidly. They specialized in small to medium-sized businesses that wanted personal, creative marketing strategies. "The big agencies like Sterling and Associates are great at large campaigns," James explained. "But sometimes smaller companies need more individual attention. We get to know our clients personally and create strategies that fit their specific needs." Emma listened, captivated by James's passion for his work. He spoke about his clients like they were friends, describing their challenges and celebrating their successes. It was completely different from how Marcus talked about business, like it was a series of problems to solve rather than relationships to build. "What would my role be?" Emma asked, surprising herself with the question. "I need an operations manager," James said. "Someone who can coordinate between our creative team and our clients, manage project timelines, and help us grow efficiently. You'd be working directly with me and our team leaders, not just supporting someone else's work." Emma felt a thrill at the idea of being involved in actual decision-making rather than just organizing someone else's decisions. But she also felt guilty for even considering it. "James, I appreciate this opportunity, but I can't just abandon Mr. Sterling. He depends on me, even if he doesn't realize it." "I understand loyalty," James said gently. "But, Emma, what does Marcus really know about you? Does he know you have a degree in business psychology? Does he know you reorganized his entire filing system in your first week? Does he know you wrote that beautiful note to his mother?" Emma looked down at her salad. James was right. After 2 months, Marcus knew nothing about her beyond her ability to fetch coffee and answer phones. "I'm not asking you to make a decision today," James continued. "Just think about it. I'm offering a 20% increase in salary, full benefits, and the chance to actually use your education and creativity." The conversation shifted to lighter topics. James asked about her life outside work, her hobbies, her favorite books, and movies. Emma discovered that they both loved classic films, enjoyed hiking, and shared a passion for cooking. By the time they finished lunch, Emma felt like she had known James for months instead of hours. "This has been wonderful," James said as they prepared to leave. "Would you like to have dinner sometime? Not to talk about work, just because I'd love to spend more time with you." Emma felt her cheeks warm. "I'd like that very much." They made plans for dinner the following Tuesday at a French bistro downtown. As James walked her back towards Sterling and Associates, Emma felt lighter than she had in weeks. "Think about my offer," James said as they reached her building. "But, more importantly, start thinking about what you want from your career. You're too talented to stay invisible." Emma returned to the office 15 minutes late, but Marcus didn't seem to notice. He was on a conference call and barely glanced up when she sat down at her desk. As she listened to him talking about quarterly projections and market shares, Emma found herself comparing his voice to James's warm, engaging tone. That afternoon, Marcus asked Emma to prepare a report on their recent client acquisitions. As she compiled the data, Emma realized that several of their biggest wins had come from her suggestions and improvements. She had researched potential clients, crafted personalized outreach strategies, and coordinated follow-up communications. But in the final presentations, Marcus never mentioned her contributions. When Marcus left for the day, he stopped by Emma's desk. "Good work on the Rodriguez account," he said. "Keep monitoring their progress on Hartwell." It was the closest thing to praise Emma had received in weeks. But she noticed that even this compliment was really about James's work, not hers. Over the weekend, Emma found herself thinking constantly about her lunch with James. She imagined what it would be like to work somewhere she felt valued, where her ideas mattered, where she was seen as a person rather than just a function. On Monday morning, Emma arrived at the office to find Marcus pacing in front of her desk. "Emma, thank God you're here," he said. "The Morrison presentation is tomorrow, and I can't find the files anywhere. Also, someone from the Patterson group called this weekend and left an angry message about a missed deadline, and I have no idea what they're talking about." Emma calmly sat down at her computer and pulled up the Morrison files, which were clearly labeled and organized in the project folder she had created. She also checked the Patterson timeline and discovered that Marcus had agreed to a deadline change in an email 3 weeks ago, but had forgotten to mention it to anyone. "The Morrison files are right here," Emma said, opening the folder on her screen. "And the Patterson deadline was moved to next Friday because you wanted to include the Q4 budget numbers. I have it all documented in the project notes." Marcus stared at the screen as if seeing the organizational system for the first time. When did you put all this together?" "I've been organizing everything since my first week," Emma said quietly. For a moment, Marcus looked genuinely surprised. "Right. Good. Good work." He paused awkwardly. "I don't know what I would do without you." But even as he said the words, Emma could see that he didn't really mean them. To Marcus, she was still just a tool that happened to work very well. Tuesday evening arrived, and Emma found herself getting ready for dinner with James with more excitement than she had felt in months. She chose a simple black dress and let her hair down instead of pulling it back in her usual professional bun. The French bistro was intimate and romantic, with candlelit tables and soft jazz music playing in the background. James was already seated when Emma arrived, and he stood to greet her with a warm smile. "You look beautiful," he said, pulling out her chair. Over dinner, they talked about everything except work. James told her about his childhood in Texas, his family's restaurant business, and his decision to move to the city to start his marketing company. Emma shared stories about growing up in a small town, her close relationship with her grandmother, and her dreams of someday traveling to Europe. "I feel like I've been sleepwalking through life lately," Emma admitted over dessert. "Working hard, but not really living." "I know exactly what you mean," James said. The morning after her dinner with James, Emma arrived at work with a new sense of clarity. She had spent the night thinking about her conversation with James, and for the first time since starting at Sterling & Associates, she began to see her situation objectively. She was talented, hardworking, and completely undervalued. Emma settled at her desk and began her usual routine of organizing Marcus's schedule and preparing his morning briefing. But today, she found herself paying attention to things she had previously ignored. How Marcus never said good morning or asked about her weekend. How he took credit for her work in client meetings. How he had never once asked for her opinion on any business matter, despite the fact that her suggestions had improved nearly every aspect of his operation. Marcus emerged from the elevator at 9:15, 15 minutes later than usual. His hair was disheveled, and he was carrying his jacket instead of wearing it. "Emma, I need coffee immediately," he said without looking at her. "The traffic was insane, and I have the Brennan Industries presentation in 20 minutes. Please tell me you have the slides ready. Your coffee is on your desk, and the presentation has been ready since yesterday," Emma replied calmly. "I've also prepared backup materials in case they ask for additional budget breakdowns." Marcus paused in his office doorway and looked back at her. "Backup materials?" Based on the preliminary research, Brennan Industries has had budget concerns with their last 2 marketing campaigns. I prepared detailed cost analyses for each proposed strategy, so you'll be ready if they ask for specifics. For a moment, Marcus stared at her as if she had spoken in a foreign language. Then, he nodded and disappeared into his office. 20 minutes later, Marcus left for his presentation. Emma watched him go, carrying the folder of materials she had prepared, and realized he would present her research and analysis as his own insights without even thinking about it. Her phone rang an hour later. "Emma, it's Marcus. The Brennan meeting went perfectly. They loved the budget analysis. How did you know to prepare that?" "Experience," Emma said simply. "Right. Well, good thinking. I'll be back in an hour." Emma hung up and stared at her phone. Good thinking. Not, "Thank you for the excellent work," or "Your preparation saved the meeting." Just good thinking, as if her professional expertise was a lucky guess. That afternoon, James called to follow up on the Hartwell project. "Emma, I have the final designs ready for Marcus to review," James said. "But I was also calling to see how you're doing. Have you given any more thought to our conversation?" Emma glanced toward Marcus's office, where he was on yet another phone call. "I've been thinking about it a lot, actually. And I'd like to schedule a formal interview," Emma said quietly. "When would be convenient for you? How about Thursday afternoon? We could meet at my office so you can see our operation." Emma agreed and wrote the appointment in her personal calendar, not Marcus's. After hanging up, she felt a mixture of excitement and guilt. She was taking steps toward leaving, but Marcus had no idea. The next morning brought a crisis that would change everything. Emma arrived at work to find 3 urgent voicemail messages from Patterson Group's CEO, demanding to know why Marcus had missed their 8 a.m. breakfast meeting. Emma checked Marcus's calendar and found the meeting clearly scheduled. She tried calling Marcus, but got his voicemail. At 9:30, Marcus strolled into the office looking relaxed and completely unaware of the crisis. "Good morning, Emma. Any messages?" "Mr. Sterling, you missed the Patterson Group breakfast meeting. Mr. Patterson called 3 times, and he's extremely upset." Marcus's face went white. "What meeting? I don't have anything scheduled until 11. Emma turned her computer screen toward him, showing his calendar with the 8 a.m. meeting clearly marked. "It's been scheduled for 2 weeks. I sent you 3 reminder emails." Marcus stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. "Why didn't you call me this morning?" "I did call you. I left 2 voicemail messages. You should have kept calling until you reached me," Marcus snapped. "This is a disaster. Patterson Group is worth millions to us." Emma felt her cheeks flush. "Mr. Sterling, the meeting was on your calendar. I sent reminders. I called you this morning. I'm not sure what else I could have done." "You could have made sure I was awake," Marcus said angrily. "That's what assistants do. They make sure their bosses don't miss important meetings." Emma stood up slowly, her heart pounding. 2 months of being ignored, undervalued, and treated like an invisible servant suddenly crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. "Mr. Sterling, I put that meeting on your calendar the day it was scheduled. I sent you reminder emails on Monday, Tuesday, and yesterday. I called you at 7:45 this morning and again at 8:15. I am not your mother, and I am not responsible for waking you up." Marcus looked stunned. In 2 months, Emma had never raised her voice or challenged him on anything. "Emma, I think you're forgetting your place here." "No, Mr. Sterling. I think you're forgetting my value here." Before Marcus could respond, Emma's phone rang. She answered it, her voice steady and professional. "Sterling and Associates, Marcus Sterling's office." "Emma, this is Patterson Group calling for Mr. Sterling. Is he available?" Emma looked at Marcus, who was gesturing frantically for her to transfer the call. "Mr. Sterling is available. Please hold while I connect you." She transferred the call and watched Marcus disappear into his office to deal with the fallout from his missed meeting. Emma sat down at her desk, her hands shaking slightly from adrenaline. She had never stood up to a boss like that before, but she wasn't sorry. Marcus spent the next hour on damage control with Patterson Group. Emma could hear his voice through the closed door, apologizing and making excuses. When he finally emerged, his face was grim. "I managed to save the account," he said stiffly. "But they're not happy." Emma nodded, but didn't apologize. Marcus seemed to expect her to say something, but when she remained silent, he cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Emma, about earlier. Maybe I was stressed about the situation." It wasn't really an apology, but it was the closest Marcus had ever come to admitting he might have been wrong. Emma simply nodded again. The rest of the day passed in uncomfortable tension. Marcus treated Emma with cautious politeness, as if he wasn't quite sure how to handle this new version of his assistant who stood up for herself. Thursday afternoon, Emma left work early for her interview with James. She had told Marcus she had a doctor's appointment, which wasn't entirely untrue. She needed to diagnose whether her current job was terminal. Rodriguez Marketing Solutions occupied a converted warehouse space with exposed brick walls, high ceilings, and an open floor plan. The atmosphere was completely different from Sterling and Associates' corporate formality. People worked at standing desks, collaborated in comfortable seating areas, and seemed genuinely engaged with their projects. James greeted Emma at the reception area with his usual warm smile. "Emma, welcome to our chaos," he said, gesturing around the bustling office. "Let me show you around." As they toured the space, James introduced Emma to his team members. Everyone seemed genuinely happy to meet her, and several people mentioned that James had told them about her organizational skills. "Emma's the one who transformed Marcus Sterling's operation," James explained to his creative director, Sarah Chun. "She's the reason their clients are actually happy now." Sarah laughed. "Marcus Sterling has happy clients? That's a miracle. What's your secret?" Emma found herself laughing too. "I actually return phone calls and show up to meetings." "Revolutionary concepts," Sarah said with a grin. James's office was smaller than Marcus's, but felt more welcoming, with plants by the windows and photos of his team's successful campaigns on the walls. They sat across from each other at a small conference table. "So tell me honestly," James said, "what's it really like working for Marcus?" Emma considered her words carefully. "It's like being a ghost who can move objects. I can make things happen, fix problems, and create order, but no one sees me doing it. That must be incredibly frustrating." "It is," Emma admitted. "But this week something changed. I realized I don't have to accept being invisible." James smiled. "Good for you." "Emma, I'm going to be direct. I want you to join my team. I'll offer you a 25% salary increase, full benefits including health and dental, 3 weeks paid vacation, and, most importantly, you'll be part of our decision-making process. Your ideas will matter here." Emma felt her heart racing. "James, that's an incredibly generous offer. You're an incredibly valuable person." "Emma, I've seen what you can do with minimal resources and no recognition. Imagine what you could accomplish with support and appreciation." They talked for another hour about the specific role, the company culture, and Emma's career goals. James made it clear that he saw enormous potential in her and wanted to help her develop her skills and advance her career. "I need 2 weeks' notice," Emma said finally. "I won't leave Mr. Sterling without proper transition time." "Of course," James agreed. "Take the weekend to think about it, but I hope you'll say yes. We could use someone like you, and, more importantly, you deserve to work somewhere that values you." As Emma drove home, she felt a sense of excitement she hadn't experienced in months. For the first time since starting at Sterling and Associates, she could imagine a future where her work mattered, where her opinions were valued, and where she was seen as a person rather than just a function. Friday morning, Emma arrived at work with a new perspective. She went through her usual routine, but everything felt different. She was no longer desperate for Marcus's approval or recognition. She was simply doing her job professionally while planning her exit strategy. Marcus seemed to sense the change in her demeanor. He was more polite than usual, actually saying please and thank you for simple requests. But it was too little, too late. Emma had realized her worth, and Marcus's belated courtesy couldn't change 2 months of being taken for granted. Around noon, Emma was organizing files when Marcus approached her desk with an unusual request. "Emma, I need you to prepare a presentation about our operational improvements over the last quarter," he said. "The board wants to see evidence of increased efficiency." Emma looked up at him. "What kind of operational improvements?" "You know, the things that have been working better lately. Client satisfaction is up, we're meeting deadlines consistently, and our organization systems are much more effective." Emma realized that Marcus wanted her to document all the improvements she had made so he could present them as his own management successes. Monday morning arrived with the weight of Emma's decision. She had spent the weekend alternating between excitement about her new opportunity and nervousness about confronting Marcus. She arrived at the office 30 minutes early, as usual, and sat at her desk with a formal resignation letter in her purse and the operational improvements presentation on her computer. Emma had called James Sunday evening to accept his offer. "You're making the right decision," he had assured her. "And, Emma, I'm not just saying this as your future boss. I'm proud of you for recognizing your worth." Now, watching Marcus's office through the glass walls, Emma waited for the right moment to deliver news that would change everything. Marcus arrived at 9:20, looking harried and carrying 2 coffee cups from different shops, apparently having forgotten that Emma always had his coffee waiting. He paused at her desk, looking confused. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," Emma said professionally. "Your coffee is on your desk, and I have the operational improvements presentation ready for your review." "Right. Thanks," Marcus mumbled, setting down his extra coffee cups. "I'll look at the presentation after my 10 o'clock call." Emma waited until Marcus had settled into his office before opening her email and sending James a quick message, giving notice this morning. "Thank you for believing in me." James replied within minutes. "Congratulations. You're going to do amazing things here." At 10:30, Marcus emerged from his office looking pleased. "Emma, the presentation is excellent. The data is very impressive. How did you compile all this information?" "I've been tracking efficiency metrics since my first week," Emma replied. "I thought it would be useful to measure our progress." "Our progress," Marcus repeated, and Emma caught the emphasis on our. "This will be perfect for the board meeting. They'll be thrilled to see how much I've improved operations." Emma took a deep breath. This was the moment. "Mr. Sterling, could I speak with you privately for a few minutes?" "Of course. Come on in." Emma followed Marcus into his office and closed the door behind her. She remained standing while he sat behind his desk. "Mr. Sterling, I'm giving you my 2 weeks' notice. Today is Monday, December 1st, so my last day will be Friday, December 15th. Marcus stared at her for several long seconds, as if processing words in a foreign language. "I'm sorry, what?" "I'm resigning from my position as your assistant. I've accepted another job offer." Marcus's expression shifted from confusion to shock to something approaching panic. "Emma, if this is about the Patterson meeting incident, I already apologized for that. We can work through any issues you might have. This isn't about one incident, Mr. Sterling. This is about the fact that in nearly 3 months of working together, you've never once asked for my opinion on a business matter, never acknowledged my contributions to your success, and barely seemed to notice that I exist except when something goes wrong." Marcus opened and closed his mouth several times. Emma, I think you're being a bit dramatic. You're a very good assistant. I appreciate your work." "Do you?" Emma asked quietly. "Mr. Sterling, do you know what my college degree is in?" "Business administration. Business psychology with a focus on organizational behavior." "Do you know why I've been tracking efficiency metrics?" Marcus looked blank. "Because I wanted to understand how small changes in communication and organization could improve overall productivity." "Do you know who wrote the note to your mother that made her so happy?" Marcus's face paled slightly. "You did. Do you know who researched Brennan Industries' budget concerns and prepared the analysis that saved that presentation?" Marcus said nothing. "Do you know who identified the problems in our client response system and created the new protocols that increase satisfaction by 30%? "Emma, I'm beginning to see your point." "No, Mr. Sterling, you're not," Emma said firmly. "Because if you truly saw my point, this conversation would have happened months ago. You would have recognized my contributions, utilized my education, and treated me like a professional colleague instead of an invisible machine." Marcus stood up and began pacing behind his desk. "Emma, you're clearly upset. Let's talk about this rationally. What would it take to keep you here? A raise? Better hours?" "It would take respect," Emma said simply. "It would take being seen as a person with valuable ideas instead of just a function that fetches coffee and organizes files." "I do respect you," Marcus protested. "I depend on you completely. I don't know what I'll do without you. Mr. Sterling, 3 days ago you blamed me for your failure to attend a meeting that was on your calendar for 2 weeks. You've never asked my opinion about any client strategy, despite the fact that my suggestions have improved every account I've touched. You take credit for work I do and present my research as your own insights." Marcus stopped pacing and stared at her. I never intended to take credit for your work. But you did. Repeatedly. The Brennan analysis, the Morrison organization, the Patterson timeline revisions. You present these successes as evidence of your management skills without ever mentioning that someone else created them. Emma, I'm sorry. I truly am. I didn't realize. I never thought about it that way. That's exactly the problem, Emma said. You never thought about it at all. You never thought about me at all. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. Where are you going? Is it another marketing firm? Rodriguez Marketing Solutions. Marcus's head snapped up. Rodriguez? James Rodriguez offered you a job. He offered me respect, recognition, and the opportunity to use my education and skills. He sees potential in me that you've never bothered to look for. Emma, Rodriguez is a small company. They can't offer you the opportunities that Sterling and Associates can provide. What opportunities? Emma asked. The opportunity to remain invisible? The opportunity to watch you present my work as your own achievements? The opportunity to be blamed when you fail to take responsibility for your own schedule? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What exactly did Rodriguez offer you? Emma hesitated, then decided to be completely honest. 25% more than you're paying me, full benefits, and a position as operations manager where my ideas and decisions will actually matter. Marcus looked stunned. Operations manager? Emma, you're an assistant. No, Mr. Sterling. I'm a business psychology graduate with excellent organizational and analytical skills who has been working as your assistant. There's a difference. Emma, please, don't make any hasty decisions. Give me a chance to match their offer. We can restructure your position here, give you more responsibilities. It's not about money or responsibilities, Emma said. It's about being valued as a person. Mr. Sterling, in 3 months, you've never asked me about my background, my goals, or my ideas. You don't know anything about me beyond my ability to organize your life. Marcus rubbed his temples. You're right. I've been so focused on work that I haven't. I should have. Mr. Sterling, I'm not trying to hurt you or damage the company. I'll spend the next 2 weeks training my replacement and ensuring a smooth transition. But my decision is final. Emma stood to leave, but Marcus called after her. Emma, wait. Can I ask you something? She turned back. Of course. Why didn't you say anything sooner? Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy? Emma considered the question carefully. Because you never asked. And because I was hoping you would eventually notice my contributions on your own. I kept thinking that if I just worked harder, organized better, or anticipated your needs more effectively, you would finally see me as a valuable team member. I do see you as valuable. You see my work as valuable. You've never seen me. After Emma left his office, Marcus sat alone staring at his computer screen. For the first time in months, he actually looked around his office and noticed things that had become so familiar he had stopped seeing them. His files were perfectly organized. His calendar was color-coded and detailed. His desk was clean and efficient. Every aspect of his professional life ran smoothly. And it had all happened so gradually that he had never stopped to think about why. Marcus opened the presentation Emma had prepared about operational improvements. As he read through the data, he began to understand the scope of what she had accomplished. Every metric showed dramatic improvement starting from her first week of employment. Client satisfaction, deadline compliance, response times, organization efficiency. Everything had gotten better because of Emma's invisible work. He picked up his phone and called David Chun, his business partner. David, I have a problem. What kind of problem? Emma, my assistant, just gave her notice. She's leaving for Rodriguez Marketing. That's too bad, David said. She seemed very efficient. You'll find another assistant. David, I don't think you understand. Emma isn't just efficient. She's been running everything. The operational improvements we've seen over the last quarter, that was all her. The increased client satisfaction, her. The fact that I haven't missed a deadline or forgotten an appointment in months. Emma, Marcus, you're being dramatic. She's an assistant. No, she's not, Marcus said, finally, understanding. She's a business psychology graduate who completely transformed my operation, and I never even noticed because I was too self-centered to see what was happening right in front of me. Marcus hung up and walked to Emma's desk. She was working on her computer, probably documenting procedures for her replacement. Emma, he said quietly. She looked up. Yes, Mr. Sterling. I'm sorry. I'm truly, genuinely sorry. You're absolutely right about everything you said. Emma's expression softened slightly. Thank you for saying that. Is there any chance? I mean, what would it take to change your mind? Emma was quiet for a moment. Mr. Sterling, even if you could match James's offer, even if you promoted me and gave me more responsibility, it wouldn't change the fundamental problem, which is, you still wouldn't see me. You'd see my value now because losing me would be inconvenient, but you wouldn't see me as a person. James Rodriguez had one lunch meeting with me and understood my potential better than you do after 3 months of daily interaction. Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine shame. You're right. I've been completely blind. I appreciate your honesty, Emma said. And I want you to know that I've genuinely enjoyed working here. I've learned a tremendous amount, and I'm grateful for the experience. Even though I've been awful to work for, Emma smiled for the first time that morning. You haven't been awful. You've just been oblivious. But, Mr. Sterling, I need to work somewhere that I can grow, where my contributions are recognized, and where I'm valued as a whole person, not just for what I can do. That afternoon, word spread through the office that Emma was leaving. Several colleagues stopped by her desk to express their disappointment and wish her well. Marcus watched from his office as people who had barely known Emma existed suddenly realized how much she had contributed to making their work lives easier. Sarah from accounting mentioned that Emma had quiet Emma's final 2 weeks at Sterling and Associates passed in a whirlwind of training sessions, documentation, and quiet satisfaction. Marcus had hired a temporary assistant named Janet, a competent woman in her 50s who had 20 years of experience in corporate support roles. Emma spent hours teaching Janet the organizational system she had created, walking her through client preferences, and explaining the intricate details that made Marcus's office function smoothly. Marcus himself had transformed almost overnight. He thanked Emma for everything, from bringing his coffee to preparing complex reports. He asked for her opinion on client strategies and actually listened to her responses. He introduced her to colleagues as the genius who revolutionized our operations, and made sure everyone knew that the upcoming board presentation would highlight her contributions specifically. It's too late, isn't it? Marcus asked on Wednesday afternoon of Emma's final week. They were sitting in his office reviewing the transition documents Emma had prepared. What do you mean? Emma asked, though she knew exactly what he meant. This new version of me. The one who actually pays attention and shows appreciation. It's too late to matter. Emma looked at Marcus thoughtfully. Over the past week, she had seen glimpses of the person he could be when he wasn't completely self-absorbed. It's not too late for Janet, she said gently. And it's not too late for your next assistant or your future employees. You've learned something important about leadership, which is that seeing people is just as important as seeing profits. Maybe more important. Marcus nodded slowly. Will you do me one favor? What's that? Will you let me give you a proper recommendation? Not just a form letter, but a real endorsement that explains what you've accomplished here. Emma smiled. I'd appreciate that. That Thursday evening, Emma had dinner with James at the same French bistro where they'd had their first date. They talked about her final week at Sterling and Associates and her excitement about starting at Rodriguez Marketing Solutions the following Monday. How are you feeling about leaving? James asked as they shared a chocolate souffle. Relieved, Emma said honestly. And excited. And grateful. Grateful. To you. For seeing my potential when I couldn't see it myself. And to Marcus, in a strange way, for teaching me what I won't accept in a workplace. James reached across the table and took her hand. Emma, I want you to know that my feelings for you aren't just professional. I care about you as a person, not just as a future employee. I care about you too, Emma replied, squeezing his hand. But I want to prove myself at work before we explore anything more personal. I need to know that I can succeed on my own merits. I respect that completely, James said. But I hope that in time, you'll be open to seeing where this relationship might go. Emma's last day at Sterling and Associates was Friday, December 15th. She arrived early to finish the final transition tasks and say goodbye to her colleagues. The morning passed quickly as various people stopped by to wish her well and express their appreciation for her work. At noon, Marcus appeared at her desk carrying a beautifully wrapped gift box. Emma, I wanted to give you this before you go, he said, setting the box on her desk. Inside, Emma found an elegant leather portfolio with her initials embossed in gold. Tucked into one of the pockets was a letter of recommendation that made her eyes water. Marcus had written 3 pages detailing her contributions, her potential, and her character. He described her as the most naturally gifted operations manager I've ever worked with and a future leader who will transform any organization lucky enough to employ her. Marcus, this is beautiful, Emma said. And the recommendation letter is incredibly generous. It's honest, Marcus replied. Emma, I know I can't undo the last 3 months, but I want you to know that losing you has taught me something crucial about being a leader. I promise you, I'll never take another employee for granted the way I took you for granted. I believe you, Emma said. And Marcus, you're a good person. You just forgot to pay attention to the people around you. Don't forget again. At 5 o'clock, Emma packed the last of her personal belongings and prepared to leave Sterling and Associates forever. As she walked toward the elevator, she turned back to look at the office where she had spent 3 months learning to value herself. Marcus stood in the doorway of his office, watching her go. Emma, he called out. She stopped. Yes. Rodriguez is lucky to have you. Don't let them forget it. Emma smiled. I won't. Monday morning at Rodriguez Marketing Solutions felt like stepping into a different world. Emma arrived to find a small welcome party waiting for her. Balloons, coffee, and homemade muffins from the company's baker, a creative designer named Tom who moonlighted as a pastry chef. James introduced Emma to the entire team during their Monday morning meeting. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Emma Martinez, our new operations manager. Emma comes to us from Sterling and Associates, where she single-handedly transformed their client satisfaction ratings and operational efficiency. Emma felt herself blushing as the team applauded. It was the first time anyone had introduced her by highlighting her accomplishments rather than just her job title. Emma will be working closely with all of you to streamline our project management, improve client communications, and help us grow efficiently, James continued. She has some innovative ideas about organizational psychology that I think will revolutionize how we work. After the meeting, James showed Emma to her office, an actual office with walls, windows, and a door. It was small but bright, with a view of the city and space for the books and plants she planned to bring from home. Your first project, James said, handing Emma a folder, is to analyze our current workflow and propose improvements. I want you to use that business psychology background of yours to figure out how we can work better together. Emma felt a thrill of excitement. Finally, a chance to use her education and skills for something more than organizing someone else's calendar. Her first week flew by in a blur of meetings, observations, and analysis. Emma interviewed each team member about their work processes, identified bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and began developing solutions. She discovered that the creative team and the account management team rarely communicated directly, leading to delays and misunderstandings. She found that project timelines were often unrealistic because no one was tracking how long different types of work actually took. By Friday, Emma had prepared a comprehensive presentation for the leadership team outlining her findings and recommendations. As she stood in the conference room presenting her ideas, she felt more energized and engaged than she had in months. These are excellent insights, said Sarah Chun, the creative director. I never realized how much time we were losing to poor communication. The data is very compelling, added Mike Torres, the account director. If we implement these changes, we could probably increase our project capacity by 20% without adding staff. James beamed with pride. Emma, this is exactly the kind of thinking we need. How quickly can we start implementing these changes? I'd recommend a pilot program with 2 clients, Emma suggested. We can test the new processes, gather feedback, and refine the system before rolling it out company-wide. After the meeting, James walked Emma back to her office. How was your first week? Incredible, Emma said honestly. I feel like I'm actually contributing to something meaningful instead of just maintaining someone else's status quo. You are contributing. Emma, you've identified problems in 1 week that we've been struggling with for months. You have a gift for seeing systems and understanding how to improve them. That evening, Emma called her best friend Lisa to share the news about her new job. You sound different, Lisa observed. Happier. More confident. I feel different, Emma admitted. For the first time in my career, I feel like my brain actually matters, not just my ability to organize things. And what about James? Still keeping things professional? Emma smiled. For now. But, Lisa, I think he might be the first man I've ever met who sees all of me, my potential, my intelligence, my ambitions, not just my usefulness. 3 weeks into Emma's new job, she received an unexpected phone call from Marcus. Emma, I hope it's okay that I'm calling you, Marcus said. I wanted to update you on how things are going here. Of course, Marcus. How are you adjusting? It's been educational, Marcus said with a rueful laugh. Janet is very competent, but she doesn't have your analytical mind or your proactive approach. I'm learning to do a lot of things I didn't even know you were handling. That's good for you, Emma said. Self-sufficiency builds character. Emma, I also wanted you to know that I presented your operational analysis to the board last week. I made sure they understood that all those improvements came from your work, not mine. They were incredibly impressed. Thank you for giving me proper credit. It was the least I could do. Emma, I've been thinking a lot about our working relationship, and I realize now that I wasted an incredible opportunity. You could have been my strategic partner instead of just my assistant if I had been smart enough to recognize your potential. Emma felt a moment of satisfaction mixed with sadness. We both learned from the experience, Marcus. You'll be a better leader going forward. I hope so. How are you liking Rodriguez marketing? I love it, Emma said without hesitation. I'm using my education, contributing to strategy decisions, and working with people who value my ideas. I'm happy for you. And Emma? James Rodriguez called me last week to thank me for the detailed recommendation letter. He said you're exceeding all his expectations. After hanging up, Emma reflected on how much her life had changed in just a few weeks. She had gone from being invisible to being indispensable, from organizing other people's success to creating her own. 2 months later, Emma was promoted to senior operations manager with a team of 3 junior analysts reporting to her. She had successfully implemented her workflow improvements across all of Rodriguez Marketing's accounts, resulting in increased client satisfaction and improved profitability. More importantly, she had found her voice as a leader. In team meetings, her opinions carried weight. Clients requested her input on strategic decisions. She was invited to industry conferences to speak about operational efficiency in creative agencies. And James had been true to his word about keeping their professional and personal relationships separate. He never showed favoritism toward Emma at work, and their romantic relationship developed slowly and naturally outside the office. They discovered they shared not just chemistry, but compatible values, similar goals, and a deep respect for each other's professional abilities. One evening in February, as Emma and James sat in her apartment cooking dinner together, he raised his wine glass in a toast. To Emma Martinez, he said, "The woman who taught me that the best business strategy is simply recognizing talent when you see it." Emma clinked her glass against his. "To second chances," she replied, "and to people who see us for who we really are." 6 months later, Emma received an invitation to speak at a business leadership conference about recognizing hidden potential in your organization. As she prepared her presentation, she thought about the journey that had brought her from invisible assistant to recognized leader. The title of her speech was "The Cost of Not Seeing: How Great Leaders Develop Great Teams." In it, she would talk about the importance of recognizing talent, developing people's potential, and creating workplace cultures where everyone feels valued and seen. Emma had learned that being invisible wasn't her fate. It was simply the result of working for someone who had forgotten to look. Once she found people who were willing to see her clearly, everything changed. She discovered that she wasn't just good at organizing other people's success. She was capable of creating her own. And sometimes, the most important thing a leader can do is simply pay attention to the people who are already making everything possible. Because the person you barely notice today might be the key to everything you hope to accomplish tomorrow. The only question is whether you'll see them before someone else does. Why fixed a recurring scheduling conflict that had been causing problems for months? The receptionist thanked Emma for creating a better system for handling client calls. Even the cleaning staff stopped by to say goodbye, mentioning that Emma was the only person in the executive offices who had ever learned their names and asked about their families. As Marcus observed these interactions, he began to understand just how completely he had failed to see the person who had been making his life better every single day. That evening, Marcus sat in his empty office long after everyone else had gone home. He looked at his organized desk, his color-coded calendar, and his efficiently filed documents. Tomorrow, he would have to start learning how to manage his own life again. More importantly, he would have to figure out how he had become the kind of person who could work closely with someone for 3 months without ever really seeing them. Emma's resignation had forced Marcus to confront an uncomfortable truth about himself. He had become so focused on his own success that he had forgotten to notice the people who made that success possible. And now, the most valuable person in his professional life was walking away because he had never bothered to see her value until it was too late. I'll need to gather data on client response times, deadline compliance, and filing system efficiency, Emma said carefully. Exactly. Put together something that shows how much better things are running now compared to before. Before you arrived, Emma thought, but didn't say. I'll have it ready by Monday. That afternoon, Emma worked on the presentation, documenting every improvement she had implemented. As she compiled the data, she realized the scope of her impact was even greater than she had thought. Client satisfaction had increased 30%. Missed deadlines had dropped to 0. Response time to client inquiries had improved by 60%. Marcus had built his reputation on her invisible work, and he didn't even realize it. But he was about to find out exactly how much he depended on the assistant he barely noticed. Over the weekend, Emma made her decision. On Monday morning, she would give her notice to Marcus and accept James's offer. She had spent too long being invisible, and it was time to step into the light. Before I started my own company, I worked for a large firm where I felt invisible. No matter how hard I worked, I was just another employee. It wasn't until I took the risk of going out on my own that I remembered what it felt like to be truly alive. As James walked Emma to her car after dinner, he took her hand gently. Emma, I hope you know how special you are. Any company would be lucky to have you, and any man would be lucky to know you. Emma felt her heart racing as James leaned down and kissed her softly. It was tender and sweet, and for the first time in months, she felt truly seen and appreciated. I should go, Emma whispered, though she didn't really want to. I understand, James said. But, Emma, please think seriously about my offer. You deserve to work somewhere that recognizes your value. Driving home, Emma's mind was spinning. In one evening, James had made her feel more appreciated and valued than Marcus had in 2 months. The choice was becoming clearer, but that only made it more frightening. Riend, Lisa, how's the new job going? Still loving the big city corporate life? Emma stared at her phone for a moment before typing back. It's fine. Learning a lot. Boss is focused. Focused on you? Lisa texted back with a winking emoji. Emma almost laughed out loud. Focused on everything except me. The next morning, Emma arrived at the office 30 minutes early as usual. She picked up Marcus's coffee, organized the morning's agenda, and prepared for another day of efficient invisibility. But, as she sat at her desk reviewing the day's schedule, she found herself thinking about James Rodriguez and wondering if all successful men were as oblivious as her boss, or if Marcus was just exceptionally gifted at ignoring the people around him. She didn't know that in just a few weeks, everything would change. She didn't know that James would call asking specifically to speak with her, or that Marcus would finally be forced to see her as more than just an efficient machine. She didn't know that sometimes it takes the possibility of losing something to realize you never really saw its value in the first place. For now, Emma simply opened her laptop and began another day of being invisible, unaware that her invisibility was about to become the most noticeable thing about her.